Okay, so good morning and thank you all for joining us for this session in our Enabling Canadian Innovation virtual conference. Today we're joined by Connor Houghton, one of our account managers here in the GTA, and Graham Darby, our Director of Customer Success at CAD Micro. So before I pass things over to Connor to get us started, we do have a poll. So we're just looking to find out how often you use renders for your designs, and you'll have about 30 seconds to fill that out before we show the answers. Awesome. And there's are the responses. So now I'll pass things over to Connor.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. I are going to go over how to work with your CAD data to create visuals and documentation. So we'll be going over a couple different products here. We'll start off actually with SolidWorks Composer. So I'm going to jump off camera here and let you guys just look at the slides. So some of you may ask, what is SolidWorks Composer? Composer actually allows us, users, some of us with no CAD experience at all, to repurpose the CAD data made by their design team into instruction manuals, web-based parts, lists, and fully interactive assembly animations. This completely eliminates time-consuming and hard-to-update processes for manually generating this sort of technical publication. Now you may be thinking, Connor, I already can take screenshots with SolidWorks. I can create exploded views with SolidWorks and even create animations. So that can all be done in SolidWorks, yes, but SolidWorks is just a design tool optimized for geometry creation, whereas Composer is a purpose-built tool that only imports the relevant CAD data for technical publications. This would be your geometry, appearances, materials, assembly structures, part numbers, and other metadata, and then leaves behind the CAD overhead, being your taxing parametric builds and geometric constraints, and those sort of things. So this allows you to capture high quality screenshots of your model, quickly create exploded views, and easily create smooth animations. As you would expect, Composer integrates with PDM environments, like you would with any of your normal SolidWorks files. And as you can see through, let's flip slides here. Oh, cool, I'm back on camera. Through this workflow here, that you can simultaneously be using Composer to create these technical publications as your designs are being made. Where users of Composer right now find the most time saving is when you actually update these publications or documents. Composer automatically updates the designs in when you're doing that within SolidWorks into these documentations as well. So that removes painstaking hours to redo screenshots, animations, and instructions itself. Most of our customers tell us for these sort of things, without Composer, they just wouldn't update these documents. They would just leave them out of date with the designs. So each year, the development team at Dassault listens to feedback from customers and users to update the software and functionality within Composer. I'll pass it over to Graham Darby right now to walk through some of these additions for 2021.
Hey there, everybody. So what I'm going to start off with is a little bit of a review of what came out last year with SolidWorks Composer 2020. These are just kind of some of the top enhancements that came out last year. Things like the ability to reuse named and exploded views of assemblies within the Composer projects. New animation formats such as MP4, MKV, FLV. These are kind of more common consumable movie formats that people can use for those animation files that get exported out of Composer. And the ability to create 360-degree raster and vector images very quickly and easily within Composer. So Moving on to Composer 2021, this is going to be the list of the things that we're going to show here. And I'm going to as well hop off my webcam here when I start doing the demo here so that we can kind of see what's going on. In this case, there are a number of enhancements coming in this year. There's support for multiple configurations, the ability to delete empty groups on import, some loading improvements, control display and properties of hidden edges within system and document properties, highlighting of invisible actors, and there has been a slight change to the user interface to kind of bring it to a more modern look. So taking a look at Composer 2021, when you're importing a new assembly into Composer, obviously it's recommended to select the appropriate import profile depending on the origin of the CAD data. With Composer 2021, within the open dialog, it gives you greater control with direct access to the configuration information of the part of the assembly. Here, you can just go in and select, which configurations do you want to bring in to the Composer project. There are plenty of great rendering styles built into Composer to help get the right look and feel for your final documentation. Selecting the flat technical display option will actually work out very well for this particular subassembly, which is showing some cleaning head brush options for this assembly. But before diving into the rest of the project, there are a few document properties worth adjusting in this case. Navigating to the File drop-down menu within SOLIDWORKS Composer 2021, there is additional user settings that that you can change for selection and highlighting options. You can now allow for hidden edges to be shown, obviously modifying the color and the intensity of that color. And just as before, colors can be set for both part and assembly selection and model highlighting. Previous versions of SOLIDWORKS Composer have had the ability to modify other document properties as well. Common changes include the viewport background to remove the gradient and adjust the background color. Paper space can be set to standard document sizes, or in this case, a custom ratio of 16:9, which is a pretty common ratio these days. And units can be modified to metric or English or vice versa. For Composer 2021, you actually have the ability to save these document properties, and this is extremely helpful when working with other systems, or if you're updating previous projects, or if you're looking to standardize this process company-wide with these document settings, so you can always reuse those properties for every project that you create. So the next step for this replacement part catalog of the subassembly is creating some views for each different head cleaner option. Again, we're kind of leveraging the different subassembly configurations of that. And with a very quick selection here, you can choose to hide all of the unselected components and leaving just the desired cleaning head subassembly. Also new in 2021, there's this is where the updated user interface comes into play. It allows for extended docking support for tabs and windows. So moving this configuration tab and docking it onto the right side of the panel gives you quick access to change those configurations to the one that you're looking for. So in this view, there are a handful of parts that are hidden. And when selecting this assembly configuration, you'll see that only the visible components are highlighted. New in SOLIDWORKS Composer 2021 is the ability to toggle this visibility on or off by system preference. So going to the selection area for system preferences, this option is called Highlight in the Viewport Invisible Actors belonging to the selection. With this option on, you'll receive direct visual feedback of hidden and shown components with each of your selections. So each variation of the cleaning head subassemblies need their own exploded view, and this is the breeze. From this view, all you have to do is select the cleaning blades, which can be done with the advanced selection tool with a single click. You can select the instances of the blades. And using the explode transform, positions those blades exactly how we want to be able to see them. And finally, with predefined styles and callouts, all the part numbers and the descriptions are automatically defined and formatted, making this a breeze. So moving ahead to the completed project, new for 2021 is the ability to host and share this native composer file directly to the 3D Experience platform. And this is something of a theme that you'll probably hear a lot this year, is this use of this 3D Experience platform. There's no exporting this to a different file type. It is just the composer file shared directly on the platform to allow for you and your team to interact with the content from any device that has a web browser with the platform. And that's going to close out the SolidWorks Composer 2021 kind of demonstration. So I'm going to hand it back over to Connor here to talk about Visualise.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Graham. If none of you know about Visualise already, it's a suite of standalone software tools that combine industry-leading rendering capabilities with design-oriented features and workflows to enable easy and fast creation of visual content for engineers, designers, marketing, and even sales. If you don't already know, each license of SolidWorks Professional and Premium that's on subscription comes with a version of Visualise Standard. I'll go over the functionality in Standard in a bit here. Visualise is actually an add-on that's entirely embedded within SolidWorks. It's just a tab within the entire same interface, so you're not going to be saving to different file formats or opening new applications to prepare your renders. So the picture we've got here actually is rendered within SolidWorks Visualize as well. If you guys recognize, that's the new mid-engine Corvette, and conveniently you can see on the wheel wells there, the logos are both nicely facing upwards. So there are two different versions of SolidWorks Visualize, Standard and Professional. As I said before, Standard comes with your basic SolidWorks CAD Professional and Premium when you're on subscription. So by improving concepts that are viewed through the design and development and marketing phases, Visualise helps users validate the best and most robust concepts before handing them over to engineering or prototyping and allocating resources towards that project. This helps reduce errors and ensures that the product gets to market faster. So there are a couple different features between Standard and Professional that you get. Note that I mentioned before, if you haven't already tried Visualise Standard with your SolidWorks, it's definitely a recommendation to do so. Here's some key feedback we've received from our customers for benefits of Visualise. It helps improve internal designs for engineering and sales to make reviews more educated for final decisions on designs. It drastically reduces the cost and number of physical prototypes, helping arrive to a final design decisions more efficiently. Helps you deliver photo quality imagery and content for marketing to reduce marketing hours spent on creating content for customers or websites. Immersive content also helps win bids for projects and helps keep customers engaged with company content online. And again, Graham's going to go over a couple of the new features within Visualise 2021. So I will pass it back over to you here, Graham.
All right, thanks, Connor. So again, I just want to review what came out for SolidWorks Visualise from 2020, because we're going to be building on some of these. So within Visualise 2020, there was support for AMD's ProRender ray tracing. Obviously, with the introduction of NVIDIA's RTX line of cards, there's support for that. There was integration with SolidWorks PDM directly within Visualise, so there's no longer necessarily having to do it just through the Windows Explorer. It's right within the Visualise interface. Full editing capabilities of MDL materials, IES light profiles, as well as the ability to export GLTF and GLB file formats for use in AR and VR applications, which, as we all know, are starting to become more and more common these days as AR and VR continues to develop. So moving on to Visualize 2021, these are some of the things that we're going to be going over. There's support for configurations, very similar to the sense of Composer. Double-click edit appearance, improvements to displacement mapping, improvements to cut planes, a new tune shading filter, and NVIDIA iRay render pass composite outputs. So let's start taking a look at that. With previous versions of Visualize, you could only access the last saved configuration when importing a model. So here's just showing the export process from SolidWorks into Visualize. But in 2021, all of these configurations of that assembly are now accessible through a drop-down menu. So it's just on the right-hand side here, I can access each configuration of this assembly as I need it. Applying appearances has always been a simple drag and drop from the appearance library. Visualize 2021 extends this simplicity with a more direct way to select a material when active in the part selection mode. So just like before, a single click will select the desired part. And new in 2021, a double click will select the part's appearance. So this makes it easier to work, to do copy and paste applications of those appearances, and even editing existing appearances. So no longer do you need to toggle between two different selection modes, to making this, a much easier workflow than what was done before. So this bracket here is a produced in-house part. It's a 3D printed part actually. And so the appearances of this part will be adjusted with some additional texture to give that lifelike look of a 3D printed part where you can see the printed layers. So using the handy double click in part selection mode gets you to the material properties where the color can be adjusted. And of course, we're going to go a step further and add a texture to give it that realistic surface finish. Displacement maps are one method of giving surfaces this type of texture, and they're based off of a grayscale image that tells the software how much to offset the surface. So these maps are a great way to add complexity to the model, but traditionally have been tricky to calculate and get exactly right. In Visualize 2021, displacement map density can be defined to give a really impressive result. So this can open up tons of possibilities with creating and rendering complex surface features on parts that, in the CAD process, that is skipped just due to the simplicity of things. You're not going to show every single layer of a 3D printed part in the CAD design. So and in this case, this displacement mapping was a little too extreme for the look, but as always, custom appearances can be applied and saved and reused for later projects. So in this case, we already had one from an old project that we're going to use here. So remapping this to a singular planar direction and rotating by about 45 degrees aligns the print process to this part exactly the way we want to see it. So this isn't the only part or bracket within this assembly that's been designed in-house and manufactured in-house. There's a few other components in this assembly that are worthy of their own photorealistic rendering. So once again, I can switch configurations to the one that I need for the particular assembly. And now we want to do a couple of section views. And just like a detailed drawing, section views are a perfect way to illustrate hidden features of your design. Visualize has supported section views in the past, but new in Visualize 2021 is the ability to add capping to the section cuts, along with the ability to modify the color of these capping planes to give a bit more of a eye-popping output. So from the right button or right mouse button menu, you can hide and show combinations of these section cuts to then be later bulk rendered in a single operation in Visualize Professional. And there are times when a photorealistic rendering isn't quite the right visual language that you want to convey your concept, but available in Visualize Professional 2021 is a new tune camera filter, which is perfect for giving an artistic conceptual sketch look to your design. So there are a handful of preset effects on here, such as white on black, black on white, and a few others that are accessible through a drop-down list. Ambient occlusion can give a great shaded effect, and with the ability to modify shading styles and line colors, The options beyond the presets are essentially endless. You can really custom make that filter to what you need. And of course, when it comes to creating renderings, the hybrid rendering engine coupled with AI denoiser from Visualise is a very powerful tool. Previous releases of Visualise allowed you to generate rendering passes for specific rendering layers, such as beauty, alpha, ambient occlusion, and so on, which would require each individual layer would require their own rendering process. In Visualise 2021, however, this workflow has been dramatically streamlined by generating each of these requested layers in a single rendering output. So in here, you can go in, select the layers you need, select the settings you want for the rendering, click render, and it's going to make each of those layers in a single output. So these are just some of the options that were selected for this particular subassembly. And that's going to bring to close those items for Visualise 2021. So we're going to move on to some platform rendering options that I'm going to pass off to Connor.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Graham. Let's look at what are we looking at here, Graham?
You want me to back up here? Hold on.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about Visualise on the platform, which is actually called 3D Excite. There we go. Perfect. 3D Excite is essentially a platform for Visualise content within the platform. The actual role is called 3D Render. And similar to SolidWorks Visualize, 3D Excite and 3D Render leverage the source data from your CAD to create high-end visual experiences, whether for internal or for customers or on the web. By connecting to the 3D Experience platform, you're able to create emotional assets, interactive marketing, all with the collaborative capabilities on the platform. And so if you don't know about all those collaborative capabilities on the platform, I would suggest having a listen to the session we actually had earlier today for the 3D Experience platform. And we can, if you would like a recording of that, we can always get you a recording of that session if you missed it. So 3D Render is a role that allows you to create photorealistic images, as I said, but it is in the browser. So this allows you to access it, as they say, anytime, anywhere, and on any device. So this is the major benefit of where the cloud and the platform comes in. You're leveraging nearly unlimited hardware resources to create these high-end renders and 3D content for product communication. Because the processing power is over the cloud, you won't have that same performance limitations based on the machine you're using. And so anyone who's tried to do a render for massive part files or massive assemblies will know that sometimes it takes a long time to get those rendered. So you would use the power of the cloud to get that done quickly. The finished images and renders are then instantly shareable across the platform for feedback for any of the users or parties involved. There are also CGI libraries that make your investment go any further, give global teams secure access to a wide range of digital assets, including models, materials, and backplates. Additionally, you can create accurate ambiances or global illumination to ensure your digital models have realistically matched with the photographed environments that you're trying to portray. Through the power of the cloud, you can also scale these rendering apps as your product design team, marketing team, or even sales team expands. Graham's going to be able to show you a little bit of content on 3D Excite and the 3D Render app itself.
All right, thanks, Connor. So now we're going to be moving on to what it looks like. What does that rendering tool on the platform look like? They are kind of bundling it, at least in discussion-wise, with some of their cloud-based design solutions. So like Connor mentioned, our previous session was talking a little bit more about some of the design tools. Rendering's kind of a part of that process because it's like the last part of the process where you're making decisions of what the model or the design is going to look like. So we're going to take a look at what this tool looks like in the 3D Experience platform. So in this case, a team of designers have been working on a design of a circular saw, and now they're ready to kind of move along into some material finish and color selections for how this design is going to look. So they're going to be using that 3D Experience platform rendering tool, 3D Excite, to do that. So opening up the tool on the platform, you can see the user interface is very lean. There's not a whole lot to it. There's a benefit to that, though, is that all your tools are easily visible. As you can see, some of the icons are even recognizable to SolidWorks Visualize. They're all there, and those are all of the functions that you're going to be using to create the 3D renders that you need of your particular design. So this model was designed on the platform, and there are a handful of components in the circular saw that already have appearances that were applied during the design phase here. So since these were retained into the rendering project, making a color modification is pretty simple. So what they want to do is go in here, creating a new scene, and they want to change the color of the housing, which is originally red, to blue to see, is that maybe a little bit more in line of how we want our design to look like. They also want to change the blade guard to something more of a light gray color. At any point during this process, the live preview can be turned on to check the process as to what at least an approximation of what the final render is going to look like. Simple camera settings can also be modified very simply on the fly. In this case, we want to use a 35mm wide angle lens and a modern 16:9 aspect ratio. So now it's time to actually render this project. So going into the render options, simple output options make it pretty easy to go in here and select things like name, the format, the resolution, and the quality. And these credits are calculated based on the complexity of the particular rendering job. And this is where the scalable option kind of comes in, where depending if it's a more simple project like this, you're going to be using less credits, where if it's something that becomes more complex or higher quality, you're going to be using more credits. Once you click render, this is where the 3D Experience platform takes over, and the processing starts to happen on the cloud, which leaves your computer free to go back into the rendering project and make other changes as you go while that image is being processed in the background. So in this case, they're going to go back to the red circular saw option, and they're going to add in an interactive turntable to help kind of give a virtual walk around of the saw to the rest of the team here. So again, going back into those rendering options, clicking render, those jobs are done simultaneously on the platform, and they're done fairly quickly because we're leveraging all the power that's available on the cloud, which is much greater than most individual workstations. Once that rendering is complete in only a few minutes, we can go in and share this rendering onto the platform via the 3D Swim, which then allows you and your team to collaborate, take a look at the designs, leave comments, leave likes, and obviously make those important decisions as to what your final design is going to look like. So within the 3D render role here, there's support as well for complex materials as well. There's physical base representations. In this case, for the saw blade, we want to give it that kind of brushed metal look, and that can be applied to the model. And then looking at the preview window here, we can see there's the kind of that brushed metal look that we all kind of associate with circular saws. There's other 3D design assets that they also want to repurpose within this project. So it's just a quick search within the platform. They want to add a wooden table that's been created to have the saw sitting on top of, and they're going to apply a couple things in the background, such as things like an ambience to the background to give a little bit more realistic location as to where that saw is. and tweaking a few things such as background size, exposure, adjusting the camera perspective to get that perfect shot, and then putting the rendering up into the cloud so that we can take a look at this. We can use these as marketing assets for our design here, and all of that's done within the cloud. So that's kind of a quick preview as to what that tool looks like on the cloud. And we're going to move into AR and VR collaboration, which I'm going to pass off to Connor for one last time here.
Thanks a lot, Graham. Actually, I think it's really impressive, some of those capabilities on the cloud there, and people don't emphasize enough the real cost to having the machines and the hardware to do those capabilities for rendering. If anyone has bought or built a computer before that's able to do it, they know computer parts aren't that cheap from time to time. So really could save you some money from some builds on that front. So we'll jump right into AR and VR here. I actually wanted to go over a bit of a case study that CAD Micro came across ourselves. If ever the value of collaboration was unclear, the pandemic in 2020 kind of set the record straight as far as remote collaboration goes. With travel restrictions and health concerns, virtual collaboration has kind of become the new norm for all of us to be able to bring distant teams together and able to work in one environment. The COVID pandemic has also brought some interesting opportunities to light to innovate business across Canada. People have had to respond to this global crisis in an effort to produce PPE and other protective equipment. A Canadian client of ours, headquartered in Calgary, Alberta, had the exact same aim to create PPE, and we figured out that an innovative 3D printing solution would be perfect for them. The solution was actually the HP Multi-Jet Fusion Printing Center. One of the issues, though, with an installation for this was typically CAD Micro performs this installation in person and the training in person as well in order to operate the machines. However, at the time, at the beginning of COVID, there was a provincial lockdown and health concerns and travel concerns. We needed to find a new way to perform the installations. So phone calls, emails, videos, and sharing files, as you may know, works to an extent, but it has its limitations. So we determined that with 2 HoloLens AR headsets, both teams were able to see the exact same view of the printer and walk through step by step the installation, despite being across the country from each other. So by leveraging AR, we were actually able to complete the printer installation and training, all by yielding the cost savings of the flights and travel and all those costs for both parties. This example actually marked the very first remote installation of an HP Jet Fusion 580 and HP Jet Fusion 4200. Not only is that an adaptation in itself around the COVID pandemic, but the products being produced by our client with the additive technology was used to meet a massive demand for PPE at the time. Granted, this is just one example of the possibilities with AR and VR. Other customers have used AR and VR to create connected environments for displays or architectural models, VR to walk through power plants with parties from all around the world, even train users to use machines virtually instead of slowing down the workflow or production schedule by using the machine itself. The point is, the technology is developing rapidly, both on the end of the software itself and the hardware. With incredible platforms like the Unreal Engine, the technology is kind of taking over before our eyes. Your competition may be getting one step ahead of you by thinking outside of the box and using some of this technology for their own benefit. Your account managers would be more than happy to have some sort of conversation about a project idea in your head, or even discuss similar applications that have taken place or we've done in a similar industry. As a test, it might actually be good for you to take a project in your mind that you're using with SolidWorks, and you're able to put it into eDrawings Professional, which comes with SolidWorks, and it includes a VR output. Granted, if you would have to have a VR headset laying around in order to do so, but at least it would be something to play around with and use that capability. So that's it for what we were going to go over today. I think we can pass it back over to Sarah. We may have a couple questions from the audience that we can work through.
Thanks, Connor and Graham. That was awesome. We do have some questions. As I mentioned at the start, we are giving away prizes. So if you guys have any questions, shoot them to us now, and you'll be entered to win the Ecobee Smart Thermostat. I actually have one myself, and it's pretty cool. So the first question I have here is, does Composer only work with SolidWorks files? Does it need SolidWorks CAD license to work?
I can answer that one. So Composer can work with more files than just SolidWorks. It can actually work with up to 20 or more than 20 actually different files, file types within Composer. And Composer is a standalone application. It doesn't actually need a SolidWorks CAD license to operate. It has its own license.
Awesome. Thanks, Graham. The next question I have in line here is, can you connect Composer content to web-based content?
Yeah, I can answer that. Interesting question. Yeah, you can export Composer files into, I believe, SVG files, and so you can create content on web browsers, and I believe there's even tools for interactive content for customers, so exploded views, and you can play around with that. On a different note, you might actually be able to look into a different product of ours called DriveWorks. We're having a session later this week. DriveWorks has its own web-based tool called Live. So if you have time on Thursday, I believe is the DriveWorks session, it would be interesting to take a look at that, especially if you're looking into any automation or interactive content for customers on the web.
Awesome, thanks, Connor. The next question I have here is, how do I get the free version of Visualise on my computer? Which is a good question.
Yeah, so if you've already gone through the installation process, or if you haven't gone through it yet, you can check off Visualise during that installation process, or if you have already installed SolidWorks, you can go back, modify that installation, and include Visualise Standard in the process. If you do have any questions though about, how do I get it, or if you're having issues trying to get it installed, that's where you can always reach out to us. We're more than happy to help to make sure that you have active subscription, the right serial numbers to help complete the install.
Awesome. Okay, and here's one more question. Is there any specific AR/VR software CAD micro solutions support?
Yeah, so we work with a software called Fuser, based out of California. And so Fuser works with neutral CAD formats, and you can export these CAD formats and create AR and VR based content with your CAD data into, I've seen it work with every single headset we've come across so far. So Fuser is a software we support and have been working with it for a while now.
Awesome. So I think that's all the questions we have. If anyone has any more questions, like we said, please shoot them our way. We'll be happy to answer those. And so once again, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you to Graham and Connor. And thank you for joining our Enabling Canadian Innovation series. We hope to see you again. As Connor mentioned, we have some great other sessions happening tomorrow, as well as this afternoon and Thursday. And don't forget to keep an eye for the survey for a chance to win even more prizes for you and your team. So thank you once again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good one.